the news tonight, Her Majesty Queen Rania and the Prime Minister attend a memorial for Nelson Mandela in Johannesburg, where more than 90 world dignitaries gathered to honor the former South African president. Minister of Water and Irrigation Hazem al-Nasser signs an agreement in Washington with his Palestinian and Israeli counterparts to execute the first phase of the Red Dead Sea water conveyance project. And head of the OPCW, working to rid the world of chemical weapons, receives the Nobel Peace Prize at a ceremony in the Norwegian capital. Good evening and welcome to a new edition of the news. Here are the details. Her Majesty Queen Rania and Prime Minister Abdullah Mansour attended the memorial service of former South African President Nelson Mandela in Johannesburg. They joined over 90 world leaders from across Europe, Asia and the Arab world, including U.S. President Barack Obama and 3 former U.S. presidents. Her Majesty last met with Mandela and his wife during a working visit she made to South Africa in 2009. She also joined Mandela in several initiatives, including the Big Read for Global Action Week and UNICEF's Global Leadership Initiative. His Majesty King Abdullah yesterday delegated the Queen and the Prime Minister to attend the memorial in Johannesburg, where dignitaries from the world arrived to honor Nelson Mandela. Here's more.
Since Mandela's death, Johannesburg has been blanketed in cloud and torrential rain, a sign, according to African culture, of an esteemed elder passing on and being welcomed into the afterlife by his ancestors. Flag-waving whites and blacks danced, blew vuvuzela plastic trumpets and sang anthems from the long struggle against apartheid. Family members of Nelson Mandela paid tribute to the late South African president. General Thanduk Mandela was the first to address the crowd filling the 95,000-seat stadium. He said Mandela was a truly great man, and 3 of Mandela's grandchildren followed to read a tribute to their grandfather that sounded much like a poem.
The giant tree has fallen, scattering 1 billion bright leaves, each replicating 1 million messages of peace, of love and reconciliation.
Mandela's memorial saw a rare gesture between the leaders of 2 nations at loggerheads for more than half a century, when US President Barack Obama shook the hand of Cuban President Raul Castro. In his memorial speech, Obama urged the youth of the world to make Mandela's life's work their own.
Thank you. For the people of South Africa, for those he inspired around the globe, Madiba's passing is rightly a time of mourning and a time to celebrate a heroic life. But I believe it should also prompt in each of us a time for self-reflection. With honesty, regardless of our station or our circumstance, we must ask, how well have I applied his lessons in my own life?
United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon praised Nelson Mandela as one of the world's greatest teachers and a beacon of hope.
Nelson Mandela is at rest, his long walk complete. Let us now be guided and inspired by the spirit he awakened in all of us, the flame of human rights, the beacon of hope.
The public will get the chance to view Mandela's remains at the capital, Pretoria, on Wednesday. He will be buried next Sunday in Kuno, his ancestral home in the windswept hills of the Eastern Cape province, about 700 kilometers south of Johannesburg. Radha Plush for the news at 10.
Coinciding with UN Human Rights Day, Mandela's memorial was the centerpiece of a week of mourning for the former South African president, who was revered across the world as a symbol of reconciliation and forgiveness. As the tributes poured in, a special one came from Mandela's dear friend, the former Archbishop of Cape Town, Desmond Tutu. Here's more.
Tributes have been flowing in for Nelson Mandela, but this one from his dear friend Desmond Tutu, the former Archbishop of Cape Town. It was in Tutu's house in Bishop's Court that Mandela had spent his first night as a free man. Tutu was very close to the beloved leader that he even gave love advice, telling Mandela to marry his last partner, Graça Machel.
What a fantastic gift God gave to us in this Mandela, who quickly became an icon, a global icon of forgiveness, of generosity of spirit.
Tutu said Mandela was not without failings, chief of which was extreme loyalty to his party, to the point of keeping underperformers in his cabinet. But he says it was the feet of clay that comprised his greatness.
I don't think he was the kind of person who would ever be satisfied. You know, even if we really got to being perfect, I think he would still reckon that there were things that we could improve on. I really wish that many leaders would emulate him. I mean, we should emulate him.
Reflections from a friendship that Mandela once described as strident and often tender.
Back here at home and deputizing for His Majesty the King, Royal Court Chief Faizat Taraune received President of Bosnia's Parliament, Denis Bečirović, and discussed with him bilateral relations and latest regional developments. Taraune briefed the Bosnian official on Jordan's reform process that aims to enhance democracy and broaden public participation in decision-making. Talks between the two officials also tackled efforts to reach a peace agreement between the Palestinians and the Israelis, as well as a Syrian crisis and its repercussions on Jordan's economy. Bečirović expressed his country's keen interest to enhance relations with Jordan, mainly in the field of tourism, trade, and higher education. And in Washington, D.C., Minister of Water and Irrigation Hazem al-Nasser signed a memorandum of understanding with his Palestinian and Israeli counterparts to carry out the first phase of the Red Sea-Dead Sea water conveyance project. Members of the U.S. government and other U.S. agencies and representatives from the World Bank attended the signing ceremony. Al-Nasser said the Red Dead Canal project is a higher Jordanian interest, which will yield around 100 million cubic meters of water at an affordable cost. This amount of water should cover the kingdom's needs for the next 10 years. The canal project will also pipe around 100 million cubic meters of brine to the Dead Sea.
Agreement is not a political agreement. It's an agreement with humanitarian dimension, because there are people on the ground waiting for the water to come out of this project. It's not a joke when people are looking for 1 liter of water to drink. I think our region is unique in this regard worldwide, and in particular my country, Jordan, is the 3rd country in the world when it comes to water shortages. That's why water means a lot to us, and we don't play games when it comes to water projects.
Over to Iraq, and another day of violence leaves 11 people killed and 20 wounded when a suicide bomber detonated his explosives at a funeral in a city northeast of Baghdad. The bombing took place in Baqouba, 65 kilometers from the capital, at a funeral for a group of Shiite shepherds who were killed by unidentified gunmen outside the city. No one immediately claimed responsibility for the attack. Baqouba has been hit by some of the deadliest attacks earlier this month. And in Cairo, the Cairo University campus was seen to some of the most intense clashes since one student was killed end of last month. Egyptian police fired tear gas at students who threw stones and Molotov cocktails in protest at a new law that restricts demonstrations. Police fired volleys of tear gas into the crowd of students to quell violent clashes after protesters left the campus and gathered in a nearby square. At least 10 students, as well as several policemen, were injured in the clashes. The head of the watch group that is working to rid the world of chemical weapons has received the Nobel Peace Prize at a ceremony in the Norwegian capital. Director General of the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, OPCW, Ahmed Ismucu, collected the award on behalf of the group. Nobel Committee Chairman Thorbjorn Jagland said inspectors from the OPCW do an extremely important and difficult job. In his acceptance speech, Ismucu said the biggest challenge for the watchdog is to compel the 6 countries that have yet to ratify the Chemical Arms Treaty to do so. They are Israel, Myanmar, Angola, North Korea, South Sudan, and Egypt. Ismucu said he believed receiving the Nobel Peace Prize would encourage others towards peace efforts and disarmament. Nobel Awards in medicine, physics, chemistry, literature, and economics were presented in Stockholm also today.
Chemical weapons evolved over time with the discovery of new and deadlier agents. But whatever their form, they share one common purpose: to invoke fear and submission through the horrifying nature of their impact. Scores of victims beyond the battlefield have attested to this. In accepting this prize on behalf of the OPCW, I also pay homage to all these victims.
Pope Francis is drawing attention to hunger through an international wave of prayer to draw attention to the plight of the needy and homeless across the world. In a video message launching a campaign by Caritas International, the Pope denounced hunger as a global scandal, saying 1 billion people still suffer from hunger today. He said the food available in the world is enough to feed everyone, adding that one cannot look the other way and pretend there is no problem. The campaign, called One Human Family, Food for All, began today with anti-hunger activists around the world praying at the same time. The Pope urged organizations, churches, and individuals to give a voice to all of those who suffer silently from hunger so that this voice becomes a roar that can shake the world. The campaign also urges governments to include the right to food in their national legislation. For the first time, General Motors is naming a female as its chief executive officer. Mary Barra will succeed Dan Ackerson on January 15th. In her current capacity as Executive Vice President of Global Product Development, Barra is well known as a hard-driving executive who has pushed the company to high standards of quality. She was also named one of both Forbes and Fortune's most powerful women in business. The 51-year-old, an engineer by trade, was already the highest-ranking woman in the auto industry. But then again, it runs in the family, as her father worked for General Motors for almost 40 years. In Colombia, construction workers near South Bogota made archaeologists painstakingly shift through earth as they uncovered pre-Hispanic ceramic pieces that experts believe could be nearly 3,000 years old. Some 170 archaeologists are digging in the rural area of Soacha, south of Bogota, looking to piece together the remains of an ancient village that could provide new insights into the country's pre-Hispanic Herrera culture. According to archaeologists' reports, some 30,000 ceramic fragments have been recovered at the massive dig site alongside human bones and teeth. The excavations and subsequent studies at the site are expected to take 2 years to complete, when some of the priceless remains are expected to go on show to the public. This year's White House Christmas theme is Gather Around, celebrating heartfelt memories from American families across the country. And as part of the White House holiday season tradition, the state dining room is home to the famous gingerbread house. Over the past several weeks, the White House pastry chef and his team created a 136-kilogram edible White House replica. The creation also features a mini Beau and Sunny sitting on the front steps of the house. FIFA President Sepp Blatter paid tribute to South Africa's former President Nelson Mandela, saying a moment of respect and reflection to the late leader will be held at every match at the Club World Cup in Morocco starting tomorrow. In a statement, Blatter said he and Madiba shared an unwavering belief that football has the power to bring people together from all walks of life that is unique to inspire unity, solidarity and equality among all people. Blatter said that in January, together with the football community, he will pay his last respects to Mandela at his final resting place in Kunu. Bradley Wiggins, who won gold at the London Olympics and became the first British winner of the Tour de France, was knighted by Queen Elizabeth at Buckingham Palace. He was honoured for his services to cycling. Sir Bradley Wiggins, who could not defend his title in France due to illness and injury, said his goal now is to take part in next year's Tour de France. His team's Sky teammate Chris Froome won the race in his absence this year. And finally, a cold front accompanied by a depression affects the kingdom as of tonight, bringing rain showers to the northern and central regions. Tomorrow, a further drop in temperature is expected as a cold front intensifies. Heavy rain with thunderstorms continue across the kingdom, and in the late hours of the day, snowfall is expected over the mountainous regions. Winds will be westerly fresh to brisk, reaching a speed of 80 kilometers per hour. The Gulf of Aqaba should expect cold weather tonight and tomorrow with cloudy skies and possible rain showers. Winds will be southerly brisk and the seas choppy. The weatherman warns of poor visibility due to heavy rain, surface clouds, slippery roads and flash floods in low-lying areas. The Badia region should also expect dusty conditions due to high winds. On the screen right now are emergency numbers, and following are the temperatures expected for tonight and tomorrow. And to close, here's a reminder of the day's top stories. Her Majesty Queen Rania and the Prime Minister attend a memorial for Nelson Mandela in Johannesburg, where more than 90 world dignitaries gathered to honor the former South African president. Minister of Water and Irrigation Hazem al-Nasser signs an agreement in Washington with his Palestinian and Israeli counterparts to execute the first phase of the Red Dead Seawater Conveyance project. And head of the OPCW, working to rid the world of chemical weapons, receives the Nobel Peace Prize at a ceremony in the Norwegian capital. And with this, we come to the end of this edition of the news. I'm Alia Tuqan. Thank you for joining us. Have a good night and stay warm.